fast this week. Good morning, welcome, happy Friday. Flex those muscles.
Good morning.
Go. Flex those brain muscles because we're going to learn and have some fun. Good morning, Dennis, Gina, James, Larry, Patrice, Sarah. You know, it's funny because we had such an overwhelming RSVP response this morning.
I know, where is everybody?
In vacation mood.
Everybody's taking off for Labor Day weekend. Too bad, they're going to miss out on all the fun.
Labor Day, that's why I have my white shoes on.
Really?
The last day you're allowed to wear it. That's a fashion thing, Seth.
Well, I know. You're not supposed to wear white. You know what I used to do, though, as a kid is immediately after Labor Day, and this was back in the 80s when Miami Vice was popular, I'd wear my white linen pants and my white sport coat and like a bright pink shirt, and that was my F you to the fashion police.
Don Johnson style.
That's right.
Well, you live down south, it doesn't matter.
I used to dress up like that. That's funny.
Don Johnson.
I was reminded of it recently because if you watched on Facebook, I stumbled on like a Miami Vice marathon on some obscure channel on Dish Network, and I was like, oh wow, cool. Totally brought me down memory lane. Then I got curious, so I was looking up online, like what happened to the people and all that, and I read some interesting background on the show Miami Vice that I never knew. And I don't know if all you knew this, but what apparently when that show was originally launched, somebody's echoing. When that show was originally launched, the people in Miami actually was a very crime-ridden place. You know, the area where it takes place, and funny how that works. Miami Vice takes place in Miami. You all put that together. So they were very concerned about this show shining a very bad light on that area, and a lot of people didn't want the show to go on because they were afraid of what it would do to them. But because of what they also did, which was they also glamorized it and showed the very ritzy, wealthy side of things with people with fancy sports cars and nightclubs and all this, it ended up glamorizing it, and actually the show wound up helping and brought a lot of money and people, and you know, the place actually substantially improved because of the show. So it's funny how things like that work. Did you all know that? Tell the truth.
No, I did not know that.
No. I've
I
never
was
seen the
just
show.
too dazed watching Don. He was.
I just like
my name.
Yep. So it's funny. I can even turn an '80s retro Miami Vice marathon into a learning experience for myself. Because that's how I roll. So we got some nice activity in the ABO group this week that I didn't see. I take it because I was too busy. But
Were you writing correspondence?
Let's see.
What? There's always activity on a.
I know. So it's funny. We were talking before we went live about the QuickBooks Online Windows app, and Billy Ann posted in ABO saying, "So who's tried it?" So, and where is Billy Ann? She looked like she was trying to get in. Billy Ann, where are you? We're waiting for you. We're not going to start until Billy Ann shows up.
Uh-oh.
Morning, Connie.
Good morning.
You ready for Labor Day weekend?
Oh yes.
I'm going to be laboring on Labor Day weekend. I'll be working.
Me too.
Me too. Me three. I love holidays because it's quiet. Nobody bothers.
And then you can get so much more done. It's actually true.
Sad, isn't it?
Yep. So one of the questions is, does the Windows app for QuickBooks Online make it work faster? And the answer is yes, it does. It's much faster if you're using the app because it's just faster to process the stuff locally and then send it up to the browser rather than.
Some sort of streaming idea, or?
Well, when you're working in a browser, the information has to be sent to and from your machine and the website server, wherever that software happens to be actually residing. So I guess the local app has a way of processing the information first and then sending it back and forth.
Do you remember you talked to us, Sarah, about something that it was online but not really online?
Mm-hmm.
It was local. It works like that.
Right. Unidata was gonna work with them. They sort of squirreled off and took care of huge corporations and big law firms and engineering firms with AutoCAD and things, and so the little guys just sort of. But I read another review. Of course, their name is gone at this second. But another review that it was really they were talking like it was brand new technology and they're the only ones that do it. But it sounded like the technology been around.
No, Citrix has mastered this technology for a long, long time, actually.
The whole streaming idea, where you use the resources on your own machine.
Yep.
But the programs live up in the cloud.
Yep.
So,
I mean, even GoToMeeting, you know, their products, their webinar products like GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, GoToMyPC, they're all built around that kind of technology. You know, where it's delivering and transferring local to remote, but it does it really well and really fast. So
they were talking about putting that. That was why they were talking about putting desktop in the cloud and then streaming it down, but
through an app.
Nothing ever came out of that.
I can't imagine how they would do that because it's so much information that you'd be bringing back and forth from the cloud that I can't imagine unless you have.
It like builds it first and then only passes back and forth exactly what you're working on or something. I'm unquite sure, but you know, I don't. Nothing ever seemed to come out of it. So.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, you know, at the end of the day, they're just going to probably ultimately need to work on continuing to perfect the way the technology works directly off the browser and the cloud. I mean, I'm seeing, because I'm looking at so many different apps all the time now, and I'm doing it for research purposes and really just to play around and always looking at learning new things. I'm seeing more and more apps now with mobile sites that deliver almost the identical experience to what you see in the browser. You know, and that tells me that. Yeah, I mean, if you have noticed, for example, somebody just recorded a QuickBooks transaction. That's perfect. We need that sound effect in every show.
Or me. I am not doing that. Uh-oh, Sarah's laughing.
Tell the truth. Who did that?
Wasn't me.
Sarah P., unmute.
I hope it was $1 million invoice.
Was it you?
Good morning. No, it wasn't me. I wished it was, actually, with that response.
So, well, go open up QuickBooks and record something quick.
I know. I should right now.
Trees.
So I'm looking at like a perfect example, and I'll freely take this opportunity for a shameless plug. The forum software that we're using for Apposaurus Rex is called Envision Power, and then you'll notice it's our domain for that is at envisionconnect.com. And if you have a chance to check this out, first of all, I'd love to have you join it. Because we're going to be reviewing these apps. We're doing our first one later today on a product called Google Keep, which, by the way, it was ripped right out of the course outline for what we are going to be talking about today, which is Course 21, Accounting and Bookkeeping Cloud Practice Management. It was one of the apps that I had listed under the to-do genre of apps called Google Keep. So if you go to apposaurus.envisionconnect.com and you join it, you can go on your mobile device, and it's not an app, it's a mobile site. We all understand the difference, right? A mobile site is just rendering in your browser on your mobile device. It's not like an app that you download from the Apple Store or the Play Store. It's just going onto the web. And I think things may head in this direction ultimately, because why have people go to the trouble of downloading an app if you can deliver a really rich experience going through their mobile browser, like Chrome on the mobile device? So anyway, the experience is almost identical. It's amazing to me because up until fairly recently, it almost seemed like it was difficult, if not impossible, to deliver all the same functionality on a mobile device that you could have in an actual browser, you know, on a mobile site. So I'm seeing, though, like, amazingly, all the exact same options are there. They work and function the same way, but somehow they're becoming able more and more to work it out so that on the smaller site it's just organized differently so that it's not cluttering up your whole little mobile screen, but somehow it just works, and it's really cool. So I'm seeing this with our Apposaurus site, which again is apposaurus.envisionconnect.com. Also, some of you know one of the products that I've spent a lot of time and I actually use every day in my own stuff is called Active Collab, and they have a new cloud-based. I've always used their cloud-based app. They also have a server-based one, but they have a new interface for the cloud-based, which I'll be honest, I didn't like at first, but I think that was just inertia. It was so different than what I was used to that I resisted it. But the more I've dug in and the more I'm playing with it, and I'm looking at, again, they have a mobile site. the mobile site for that product, it's the identical experience to what I experience when I use it in my browser on the web. So I really think that's the direction things are going to head in, and they're going to continue to head in that direction. I think we might actually see the day when apps are less and less used, and where people are just learning to build their software in a mobile site version of their site so that it just works, and you don't have to download an app to do it. I love the fact that because I use Chrome and because I use Google for everything pretty much, and I know the same is true for Apple, it's just different stuff that renders the same experience, but I go in on my mobile device and I open up my Chrome browser and all my same bookmarks are there and synced up. So if I'm on my mobile device and I go to a site and I bookmark it, within seconds it'll show up on my Chrome browser and vice versa. I love that stuff. I love the fact that I can take everything I do with me everywhere I go. Dennis?
Seth, could you type in the chat how you spell your Apposaurus?
Yeah, I'll drop it in the chat. I'll post it in the group, and I'll share my screen in a couple of minutes and show you as we go into today's actual topic. So let's paste that in. So, and I'll come back to it in a minute. So that's my sort of more than 2-second rant on the mobile world and where that's going. I really think that's the direction it's going to head in, though, because that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing more and more, like I said, applications that render in a mobile site version as opposed to an app and deliver the exact same experience that you get when you're on the browser and on an actual computer in Chrome. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I can see where your cell phone would become like a little computer where you could plug in a monitor and a keyboard eventually.
Well, it's getting there, but and I'm looking over here because I'm going to show you what I recently did for my tablet. It effectively turns it into almost like a little mini laptop. I bought this case, right? And look at that, my reminder comes up about our Hangout. But I bought this case. It's really a keyboard with a case. This is my tablet that I just popped inside here. And it's funny, the battery, you charge it once, and I was reading in the instructions, the charge lasts for a whole year, which is pretty cool.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
And the keyboard lights up, and I have choices of different colors that it lights up, and I wonder if it'll render well.
What's the name of that case?
What is it?
It's called Zagg, Z-A-G-G. I actually just went into the Verizon store because that's who I have my service with, and I said I want the best case you have for the Samsung 10-inch tablet. And this is what they actually didn't have it in stock. They just ordered it for me and had it sent to me.
I have one of those, and I used it for a while, and then I stopped.
Why?
Why? Well,
I'm serious. I love this thing. Can you see that it's lit up?
Too. I'll go get mine here in a minute. But I did. I mean, I thought I needed a keyboard, but I'm finding the ways that I use the different devices, I need different things. Like I just didn't need the keyboard for the tablet
I wasn't
anymore.
My tablet at all until I got the keyboard. It made all the difference for me having the keyboard because, like, I don't want to respond to emails using that digital keyboard. It drives me nuts trying to do that.
So maybe that's the difference. I'm not responding to emails on my tablet unless I have to. I'm doing it on my regular computer.
And that's what I normally did.
Most of what I'm doing on the tablet is online stuff and app stuff because I can't do it on my phone because I can't see it. I like the bigger screen on the tablet. So I look at the tablet kind of like the app portion of my phone. But like you, the apps I have found have been so resource hogs that it just drains the life out of my tablet. That's the problem I've been having.
Right. See, I use this now to go into my Active Collab site, but that's where we're managing tasks and doing all kinds of other things where I do need my keyboard. So you're right. And then the other thing I use this for a lot is this is my new TV. This is where I stream Netflix, and I use it for
the iPad for that a lot.
Now, in fairness, I don't need the keyboard for that. But it's nice to have it in this case, and then my wireless headset goes on, and I can sit in my bedroom without disturbing my wife and watch my Netflix programs with my headset on. I love this thing. Anyway.
I have an OtterBox. See, I have everything in an OtterBox because I'm clumsy. So, if I don't want to see, my desktop is in my office, and so, there comes a time in the day where I cannot be in here anymore. So my iPad becomes my next device, clear up to, trying to go to sleep. But sometimes I wish I had the keyboard. I do have I do have one that works with it with the Bluetooth and everything, but it's cumbersome. So I like that idea, except that I have this big honking, OtterBox on it.
Well, you'd have to take it out of the OtterBox to use a case like this. But I would think that a case like this would sort of solve that problem anyway.
That's what I'm thinking. Is I don't know what kind of impact. Usually it's just falling off the bed.
Yeah, and this is a pretty heavy-duty, sturdy case that I got it in. Along with
maybe I'll do that because it's so heavy that if I don't have it on some sort of thing in my lap, one of those lap things. It starts tearing up my thumb.
I've been using just a stupid little stand. That's my favorite thing with the tablet these days.
Is it in your lap on the sofa though?
No, I do have to put it on a hard spot somewhere. But like you, I get tired of being in front of the computer. Yeah. So when I'm going to Michelle's QB Power Hour, I'm putting it on my tablet and I'm carrying it around wherever I'm at in the house and watching it there. So the little stand works wonderfully for me. I'm putting it on the counter in the kitchen while I'm doing the little bit of dishes I got.
I found some speakers. They're about, I don't know, 10-inch speakers at Kroger for $9.99, and we bought 2 of them. And they're Bluetooth. One is connected to my iPad, and one's to my husband. And so when he's listening to what are those podcasts, and so I'm starting to do it too because I can just start a podcast, and it's big enough and loud enough where I can walk around.
I listen to all my music on this little speaker here. It's amazing what this little thing puts out in terms of sound. Of course, then you have Eric who will swear you need to get the Sonos system so you can just have it installed everywhere around your house. But I don't have the patience to take the time to get all that installed. This actually, the case for my Samsung, also acts as a great stand. I could see, not that I really do much cooking, but I could see where if somebody were in the kitchen doing cooking, you could have your Bluetooth headset on and have this kind of streaming whatever programs you want to watch while you're in the kitchen doing whatever you do. All right, we're going to have to start muting people here.
She's muted, but you can still hear her.
That is weird. Now she's unmuted.
That's weird.
Okay, I think we're all good. Good morning, Kelly. All right, so you know what? We're more than 15 minutes in, and I haven't even gotten into today's topic yet.
Get to work.
So let's get to work. We've got some things to do here. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to dive right into it now. So for those of you who have to watch the recording later and have to advance 15 minutes in, oh well, too bad, sorry. Next time we'll do better. I got a comment on my YouTube channel from somebody from a video I did 100 years ago saying 2 minutes and 44 seconds before you touch something substantial. And I was like, okay, shut up. And he says, you like to waste people's effing time, don't you? And I just wrote a reply saying, yep, that's what I love to do.
Let's all give him an applause.
So, meanwhile, that kind of thing always makes me a little self-conscious, so I always replay the video what was he talking about? And I actually thought that was pretty interesting information. But the point was I took that long before I got into the real meat of what the subject of the video was. But, oh well, it's YouTube. Go listen to someone else's videos if you don't like mine. There's lots of people out there.
He can drag it 15 minutes. Big deal.
Yep. Next question on ABO this week. Becky comes in an hour ago with, so should we raise rates? Journal of Accountancy put this up. They're really talking not so much about consultants' rates. They're talking about the rise in what accountants get paid, salaries that they get paid when you're actually working full-time for somebody. But still, it brings up the question in our mind, should we raise our rates? And the answer is yes. Eric makes the point very well, actually, in the stream here. You should raise your rates until people are no longer willing to pay them, right? I mean, why not? As long as you're confident.
The market will allow.
Exactly.
Well, I'm not sure that I want to do all that. Raise my rate for all the market will bear. I enjoy helping people.
No, absolutely. I agree with you there. But if people are willing to pay you more for doing the same thing, if people are willing to pay you more for doing the same thing, why not? Why shouldn't you get paid well to do what you love to do so that you can help people without ever having the worry of, am I getting paid enough, right? That's always been my philosophy. And for that matter, you don't have to raise your rates on existing clients. If you're plenty busy with existing clients, though, then you definitely should raise your rates on new clients coming in the door and saying, essentially what the message is, if you want to come in my door, if you want me to take time away from these people who I love and trust and whom I've worked with in order to give you time, show me that you're willing to pay for that. That's kind of the attitude and philosophy. So, and I've often said this, you don't have to raise the rates on the existing clients. Just give yourself a raise for the next new client that comes in your door and see how that goes, right? Because a lot of times I think it also comes down to our confidence levels. We're afraid nobody's going to want to pay it. Worst that happens is someone says, oh, no, I can't afford that. And then if you're inclined to, you can always say, okay, well, let's figure this out then, right? So you can always come back down. It's hard to go up once in other words, if somebody comes in your door and you say, well, I'm $150 an hour, and they're like, oh, no problem. And then you say, oh, that was too easy. You know what? Would you pay $185? That's not going to work, right? So anyway, the question, raise your rates. My opinion, raise them if you're inclined to want to raise them all you can until too many people start saying it's too expensive. But I also agree with Gina that you don't want to price yourself away from being able to help the people who you really care about and want to help. That I guess should go without saying, but maybe you do have to say it. So jump into Abo. There's lots of good conversations. Of course, there's me and Stacy. Stacy posting a reminder about our Apposaurus Rex, the first review. We're reviewing Google Keep later today. And I'm rushing now because I really wanted to get into today's content. Here's the site, apposaurus.envisionconnect.com. This is what I was talking about earlier. The mobile site for this it blows me away how consistent the experience is from here to the actual mobile site that you'll get on your mobile devices. All right, let's get out of here. And then this is, of course, my home site, nerdenterprises.com. So let's talk about, first of all, I got to thank who I got to thank. All right, we have our Team SOB. We have Carrie Kahn on Mondays talking about QuickBooks products, Mariette, Tax Tuesdays, right? Jay Kimball, I always do that. Jay Kimmelman, Zero on Wednesdays. Billy Ann, Thursdays with QBO and QB. And later today, our very own Joanne will be talking about all things accounting on her Friday chat. That all goes on in Abo. So just join the Abo group. Look, you'll see them post with a hashtag to talk about the content. Now we're going to get into, finally, what I laid out for today. Now, the inspiration for today comes from actually two different things that we've done on School of Bookkeeping, and that's why I'm showing you the course listing. The first thing is really this course I did, Bootstrapping Your Bookkeeping with Google Sheets, and I remember when I started launching this, it was, as you can see, one of the first courses we launched, and I remember having the discussion with Eric. He was telling me, Seth, you should do Excel. And I said, no, I'm tired of Excel, and people need to learn Google Sheets. And his argument was it doesn't necessarily matter what you think people need to learn. It's what people are using. It's what people are comfortable with. And I said, nope, that's the whole distinction between thought leadership and following the herd is I want to show people that there's something better out there that you can use. That that there's something out there, and I want to qualify the term better very carefully. There are definitely things that Microsoft Excel does that makes it a more powerful spreadsheet application in certain respects. But if the concern is wanting to do real-time collaboration in the cloud in a spreadsheet, then Google Sheets blows Microsoft Excel away in that. And the concern that I know people have often with Google Sheets is, well, does it do everything that Excel does? And the answer is yes. Just about everything Excel does, Google Sheets can do, all the way up to things like pivot tables and data filtering and sorting and subtotaling. So I launched this course, Bootstrapping Your Bookkeeping with Google Sheets, because, and I'm hearing some background noise. I'm just going to mute everybody. Don't take it personally. And then, of course, if you have a question, just unmute and chime in, please. Feel free anytime. Stop me, interrupt me. So the Google Sheets course was launched, but the thing with something like this is that I needed sort of a context in which to teach it, right? It's hard to just go out there and say, here's a course on Google Sheets. Let's look at everything it does, right? There's too much to do that way. So what happened was around the time that I developed the concept for this course, I had a blogger reach out to me, and it was around tax time, I think the year prior to when this was launched, that she said to me, hey, look, I'm a blogger. I don't have a lot of income. I live at home with my mom. I use her credit card to buy a lot of the stuff I buy, and I don't really even have a bank account of my own, and I really don't make enough money to justify even paying, the $160 or whatever it is for QuickBooks Pro. And so she said, what can I do? What can I do to track my accounting information without it costing me a whole lot of money to do that? And that's where the concept of this course came from. So what I said was, I'm going to lay out a course that shows you how to set up a series of sort of registers in Google Sheets so that you could track your accounting and financial information. So if we go into the course outline, that's essentially what it does. And if you look here, you know, of course, I always try to be cute with my titles, how to get to Google Sheets, you know, like how to get to Sesame Street. Anyway, create your sheet, getting your sheet together. So I go through some of the basics, but then I get into here to, you know, how to move columns around, and ultimately what you wind up with in this course is a pretty, I was actually even surprised at how well it seemed to work in terms of having one master register where you track all your transactions and how things are paid for, and then beyond that, you know, a listing of customers with a drop-down that you could choose from in that master, because again, Google Sheets does all this. I can do data validation with drop-down lists based on lists in other locations. So this course walks you through how you can create all of that in Google Sheets. And while you probably in this crowd, we're all going to be using actual accounting software, you can take lots of chunks of what's in here and use them for other applications, such as you want your client to be able to provide you with some kind of information. You can create, using the same concept here with drop-down lists and things, some kind of a schedule where your clients can come in. Uncategorized expenses is a perfect use case. Now, since the time of this course, I've also evolved to where I also use Smartsheet a lot for the same kinds of things that I might have had you use Google Sheets for. But that's another course for another day. Bottom line, if you go through this course, I think you're going to learn a ton in terms of, and get a ton of ideas in terms of things that you can do with and for your clients that are going to save you time and make things much more efficient, because there's no more emailing spreadsheets back and forth and trying to figure out who's got the latest version. That right there, emailing spreadsheets back and forth and trying to figure out who's got the latest version, is such a time killer. It's such a productivity killer that I think we need solutions like this, especially as we move forward and especially as things start moving faster and we're trying to get things done more and more in real time. And, you know, we talked about the Windows mobile application that links to QBO, and the whole key to it is that it gets things done faster. So we're always trying to get things done faster, process things more efficiently, so that we can be that much more effective in everything that we do. So now we bring up the most recent course, Cloud Accounting, Accounting and Bookkeeping Cloud Practice Management, the ABCs of Starting and Growing an Accounting or Bookkeeping Practice in Today's World. Now I want to show you something. I actually didn't bring this up, but I want to bring it up, so I'm going to. Let's go over here. The whole first section of the course centers around this template that I've created in Google Sheets. But before I get into that, I want to jump into the folder here real quick. Another thing I love about Google Sheets is that option that lets you quickly get into the folder where the file you're working in is located. So bear with me while this loads. And it's going to be a little slow because of the streaming and everything else. All right, so let's go here. And I purposely wanted to show you this because I wanted to make the point that I do eat my own dog food. Our whole course outline for this very course is done in Google Sheets, and here it is, right? So the whole first, and I love this because, again, if I make a change, the change happens anywhere, and if Eric wants to come in and see what's Seth working on course-wise, he can see the whole outline. In fact, it's funny because I forgot about this until yesterday at some point. But speaking of Apatosaurus Rex and the fact that we're reviewing Google Keep, that was ripped right out of this course outline, because further down as I scroll down, when I get into to-do list and task management applications, there's Google Keep. So the idea for doing this review on this particular app actually came from and was ripped right out of this course outline. Stacy actually, I was showing Stacy this course outline, and she saw Google Keep and she homed in on it, and she says, you know, I've heard of that app. Let's check that out. Let's review that app first. I said, perfect. So the course outline is done here. Now here's the funny thing. Maybe it's not really funny, but to me it kind of is. So I have this outline here in Google Sheets. I also have, I also track it in Smartsheet, and I also track it in Evernote. Now, you might say to me, Seth, that's insane. Why do you have 3 different places to track the same thing? And my answer to you is different purposes. And again, and as always, when we're talking about working in the cloud, I can have all these applications open at the same time, and I'm going to explain to you the different purposes real quick. So here in Google Sheets, and it's funny, I keep pointing at my screen as if you can see me pointing, but here in Google Sheets, I've got the outline, and that's really the sole purpose of this. And what it lets me do is I can easily insert lines if I decide I want to add something, and I can kind of repurpose the lesson numbers by using my autofill command, which Google Sheets has, and clicking and dragging down, and it'll renumber them after I insert something nice and quickly like that. Also, I have it down here where it shows me the total number of lessons. So as you can see right now, I've got 64 lessons planned, and it's programmed to ignore the double zeros. That's how I get an accurate count of how many lessons I actually have planned. So it excludes the double zeros in the lesson numbers to come up with the actual lesson. So little things like that that I can do in Google Sheets, I love because it lets me do this. It looks like we've got some visitors, so somehow you guys have gotten, well, it's linked in the course actually, so because I let you access the outline through the course, so that's probably where these people are coming from. We have an anonymous dingo, a platypus, and a buffalo. I love how Google does that. It's very funny. Anyway, so this is how I use Google Sheets for the course outline. Smartsheet is where I keep track of the actual tasks that I have to complete, recording the content, editing the content, publishing the content at a simple level. And then in Evernote is where I make my notes about what I want to do with the content. I have my video notes, my bullet points, what things do I want to cover, what do I want to make sure I'm not leaving out when I develop the content for these courses. So that's why I track it in 3 different places. I have 3 purposes for it. Is it a pain sometimes to make an update across the board? Yes and no, because in Evernote I don't really add a lesson until I'm ready to actually do the recording of that lesson. And then in Smartsheet, once I'm done, I just go in and mark it done. So that part's really easy. So this whole course, the whole first section, focuses on the practice management part, starting and growing your practice. It's that how to start and grow your practice part of the title, because then running it from anywhere is what the whole rest of the course is about. So how do I start and grow my practice? And mind you, I think this is applicable to anybody, even if you've had a practice in practice for 10 years, because at any given time, we can start over and say, let's kind of rebuild from the foundation. So what is that foundation? To me, it's doing the right planning on the course, and this is where Google Sheets lends itself perfectly to this, because again, since it lives in Google Sheets, I can access it from anywhere. Eric and I have often told the story, and it's a true story. When we first started working on School of Bookkeeping, we built the financial model, where we projected how many subscribers we thought we'd get and how long it would take to get them and the different rates we might be charging and so on. We did that all in Google Sheets, and the beauty of it was he and I were both able to be in there at the same time, no files to email back and forth, and he could say, hey, Seth, can you write a formula that figures this out? Once we reach this sort of revenue goal, we want to figure in this amount in expenses on Google AdWords and those kinds of things, so we can program in thresholds, and that's exactly what this is designed to help you do. So the first section actually I'm going to skip over because I've covered this in previous Hangouts, but it's all about setting the goals. In Google Sheets, if you click this little guy here, it's similar to what you have in Excel where you right-click the little arrow icons that appear in about the same spot in Excel, but it gives you your list. And I've shown you in the past Hangouts where, we have our goals set. Go away, Google. And so this starts in September because, of course, I've been recording and writing the content, throughout August and September. But by the time I launched it, it was basically, well, now we're in September. So the premise was, let's assume we're starting this in the month of September. So we have the different revenue streams. So this is, I think, what we need to do when we're building these practices in the cloud is we need to look at what are my streams of revenue? I'm going to provide bookkeeping services. Maybe I'm going to provide, tax prep services. Maybe I'm going to provide CFO level or accounting services and those things. So we want to describe and define what is our business? How do we make our money, right? The beginning of the course also touches on your personal finances. Why? Because I think it's important if you're starting a business or if you're running an existing business to take the time to look at it and say, does this business, based on my best and most conservative estimates, produce enough at the bottom line level, and assuming I include a salary for myself in there somewhere, is that enough for me to be able to pay my bills on the personal side? I wonder how many people really take the time to look at that piece. We all do, well, I shouldn't say we all, but a lot of us do a lot of projections about the business, but I rarely see people even touching on, let alone emphasizing the importance of making sure it's making enough money to pay my bills at home. Because if it's not, I'm going to have a problem. I'm going to be stressed out. I'm going to be worried I can't pay my bills at home. What am I spending all this time on my business for when it doesn't generate enough of a profit for me to be able to cover my personal expenses? That's a problem. And the real point of this, I think, at the foundation, and especially as we move into the cloud and things are moving faster and faster, is I think it's more important than ever to know going into it that I have at the foundation a platform, a structure in place that enables me to function in my business without having any stress. I need to be able to be relaxed and calm and stress-free so I can really focus on what I'm trying to do for my clients. So I think that's why the goal planning here, the way I've laid it out, is really important. And that's what I lay out. I lay out a whole financial model for you. And the idea here, of course, by the way, is, and so here's the bookkeeping services details, right? So we're talking about value pricing. I've got my gold, silver, and platinum packages. And I know in previous Hangouts I went through this part of this with you all, where I showed you lay out, all right, so in month one I'm going to have one client here, maybe one client at the silver level, and so on. And then we keep accumulating more clients as we go. Hopefully we don't lose too many along the way. But we should put some attrition in here as an assumption at some point. So then moving right along, and again, I just can't stop stressing. This is all, and I mean, as you can see, this is all done in Google Sheets, but I want to get to the meat of this. So people have been asking for over a year now, especially my friend Mariette has been saying, Seth, when are you going to do cash flow projections again? Well, here you've got it. I've laid out the whole cash flow projection structure, and that's what I really kind of want to show you today is how I did this. So we've got our balance sheet, and again, this is done at a simple level. Because the idea is once you go through, and the videos in the course walk you through how to create all this, I also show you how easy it is once you've set this up to add to this. It's very easy to add to this once it's set up, and especially once you have it balanced. So we have our balance sheet, and then I'm going to scroll down. We have our income statement. And the reason I'm focusing on using the term income statement and not profit and loss is, again, because we're cloud-based, we're dealing, a lot of us, more with people in other countries. An income statement is the more universally recognized term to describe what we often call the profit and loss. So it's important to me to sort of stay in keeping with that and start learning to use the language that's going to help people better understand what we're talking about, especially as we're able to work more and more on a global level. So I pay attention to little tiny details like that. So I've been forcing myself, even you'll hear in some of the recordings where I accidentally revert back to calling it a P&L or a profit and loss, and I'll correct myself and say, no, wait, we got to get used to calling it an income statement. This is derived right from the goal sheet that we did because we already built the income model when we set those goals. That's kind of the point. Is we built that income model. But so all I did really was I copied and pasted the descriptions over. Actually, I didn't even. If you look carefully at the formula, you'll notice I linked the formula right back over to the goals template. Why? Because if I go back to the goals and I make a change there, it will update instantly here. I don't have to make the change in two places. And I don't have to remember where I have to make the change. So the idea when you're doing any kind of financial modeling is there should only be one place where I ever have to change one thing. And everything else should flow from there. So it's a real simple formula, equals goals. In this case, it was the A7 cell on the goal sheet, and it's as simple as typing the equal sign and clicking over there. And then I copy and paste it down, so I've got my 10 revenue streams right here in my financial model. Then over here, it's linking to the total that I have for that same service, which, again, it's the same shape, so it's an easy copy and paste down when I built this. And the videos in the course, of course, go into very good detail showing you exactly how to build this. So I'm not going to go into that here. What I really want to do here is just demonstrate for you how nicely this comes together, and especially the fact that you can do this in Google Sheets. And it's very easy to do, and it works very well. So we get over here, we have our revenue, the direct costs, and the come in also from schedules that I'm going to show you in a minute. And then we have, of course, the gross profit derived from that, and expenses, again, come in from schedules that I'm going to show you in a minute. So all we do is create the schedules that project these numbers and then flow them back over here with a simple formula that sets it equal to a total from one place to another. So over here, I give an example of, I'm going to skip over the line of credit, actually. Let me advance forward. So let's go first here. So, and notice I have IS in front of it, and I'll show you. I have a bunch of sheets. IS. IS, of course, stands for income statement. And this is something I learned from a client who took my original cash flow projections webinar and worked on his own based on that, and then hired me for some consulting. So I went through it with him, and I noticed he had done this, and I asked him about that. Notice the balance sheet accounts all have a BS in front of them, standing, of course, for balance sheet, not the other thing you might be thinking of. But the point is that it helps organize these tabs, especially as the list grows long, right? So it helps me clearly identify within the list, oh, here's all my income statement accounts, right? So the first thing is the template, and the template's very simple, but it's very helpful to have this template so that as I want to add more income statement accounts, whether it's an income account or cost of goods sold or an expense account, it's going to work the same as far as this purpose is concerned, which is I just need some space in here to describe the numbers that I'm projecting and how they're being projected, also that they can arrive at a total here, also that this total can be flowed back to the corresponding line item on the profit and loss. Right? And again, the course walks you through how to create this template and then how to use it to build another one. So let's look at insurance expense. In the course, I went through insurance expense because I thought it was a great example of how complicated it can get, and I felt, frankly, that as a teacher I could teach how it's not as complicated as you might think. And why would this get complicated? Because as you can probably hopefully start to put together based on what I have on the screen here for you, you have a prepaid usually where insurance expense is concerned, right? A lot of our clients don't book it properly. They just take the whole semi-annual $6,000 that they pay in the month of September and call it insurance expense, right? But hopefully we all know better that that's not insurance expense. That's a prepaid, and then that expense has to be amortized monthly, right? So if I'm paying $6,000, but that covers me for 6 months, then I need monthly amortization of $1,000. So what happens here is, here's the expense. Right? This I just laid out. I just put $1,000 in each month, and I set it equal, right? Because I'm assuming it's going to continue to be just $1,000 a month. And that covers the income statement part, right? The expense is truly $1,000 a month on the income statement, but now we have to deal with what that looks like on the balance sheet. And again, this is where this starts to come in really handy. So here's my prepaid insurance. Now remember that the $6,000 we said was paid also in September, right? So let's go over to this one. So on the balance sheet, I have the payments and the amortization in the schedule. So let's see how that works. So over here, I pay $6,000 in September, but then I'm amortizing $1,000 for September's own expense. So this amortization, if you look at the formula, notice is a function. It starts with a negative sign, and then it points over to the corresponding month for the insurance expense. Right? So I'm saying take whatever the insurance expense is and subtract that amount here from the prepaid so that I'm properly amortizing this. Right? So that's the amortization of a prepaid, and that's as complicated as it gets. It means I have a balance sheet account schedule like this with two separate line items. Notice also the balance sheet account template, which of course is what this is derived from, differs from an income statement template in that this has a beginning and ending balance. So I pay I start with 0. I pay the $6,000, that increases my prepaid. The $1,000 gets subtracted flowing over from the corresponding expense account for a net ending balance for the month of $5,000, which then flows right over into the beginning balance for the following month, right? So it's not rocket science. If you just think it through, it's really easy to follow and create. Now let's see what this looks like in the final analysis, which of course is going to be here on the statement of cash flows. So let's go over to the statement of cash flows, and let's see what's going on in the month of September there. And the statement of cash flows is the hardest one, and again, I like to think at least that when you follow along with my lessons, I like to think that I make it a little easier to understand. I hope that I make it easier to understand. So here's my prepaid. Notice it's got the negative $5,000 because that's the net prepaid. We prepaid $6,000, but then we amortized $1,000. So the net change to the prepaid was $1,000. This was a net $5,000 in cash outflow that was not included in net income. Remember, $1,000 of it is included in net income because it's in that insurance expense. So I start with my net loss for the month of $2,200, and I have to subtract $5,000 based on the prepaid to reconcile from net income to cash. That's the analysis of the prepaid insurance account. Okay, then recently I had one of our enrolled scholars from School of Bookkeeping on with me, and she was asking me about this cash flow projection stuff. And so she wanted to ask me, how complex could this possibly get, like in the most complex analysis? So I said, well, Let's look at an inventory example. Now, originally this model and for the course was not built with inventory in mind because it's being built for a bookkeeping or an accounting practice such that it's, inventory wouldn't necessarily likely be an issue. But I figured why not build it in just to show it. It's not in the course, and it's not going to be, I'll be honest with you, but it's here in the template because somebody asked me to go through it. I'll say this, and I stress this point in the course, that the context here, again, is building your accounting practice, right? Trying to grow and build that accounting practice. I'm building this in to help you build the foundation of your accounting practice, but it's so important, I hope you realize this, and I mentioned it throughout the course, that once you master doing this, once you're able to set this up and understand how it all comes together for your own practice, you had better believe that this is a service you better offer your clients. Why? Because when we talk about cloud accounting and moving to the cloud and the firm of the future and the fact that we're spending less and less time doing data entry, we spend a little bit of time babysitting that data and massaging it to make sure that things are coded correctly so that ultimately we have a good balance sheet and profit and loss and statement of cash flows in place for our clients. As long as our technology is allowing us to get that stuff done so much more efficiently, so much more effectively, then this is the kind of thing that we want to now offer as a service to our clients. But first, do it for yourself, right? First, learn how to do it for yourself, master it for yourself, for your own practice, make sure you understand it in every aspect, because then you'll have the confidence when you go to your clients that you know exactly how to do this for them and exactly what to do. That's how I have introduced every single service that I've ever offered every client. I did it for myself first. In fact, that's exactly how this whole cash flow projections concept that I've developed came into place. Because my wife one day asked me the question, Seth, how come these clients coming in your door have such a mess? Didn't they do what you did in terms of doing this analysis on their business? And I'd say no, they're not accountants. They don't know how to do this. They can't even think to do this because they're really good at selling widgets or whatever it is that they do or sell. So they don't know how to do this stuff, and they don't know to do this stuff. So the point is that this is, there's a few layers to this, and why I'm teaching it at the very forefront of this whole course. First, it's to build the foundation of your own business, or go back and rebuild it and understand what you've got, right? And secondly, it's to be able to then offer this as a service to your clients, because this is so powerful and so valuable that your clients are able to, and don't for a minute ever think that you're going to just be able to build this and send it to the client and say, here, go look at this. No, no, no. The whole purpose of this is to be able to go through it with your clients, to analyze it with them, to explain it to them. If you send this to them and just have them look at it, they probably stop taking your calls because they'll be like, what is this? I don't even want to know, right? So the point is you have to call them first and don't even show it to them. Say, schedule the hour with them and say, there's something I want to go through with you. And then you walk them through it, and then they start seeing the value, and they love you for it. And Sarah, I've been meaning to tell you that Google did fix the overlap problem, but I'm looking in the chat, and it looks like you figured that out. That the overlapping problem, you have different text wrapping.
I just uploaded a budget template while you were talking. I was playing with it, and it uploaded. I mean, it wraps beautifully. I can finally see the chart of accounts properly.
You have choices. You have overflow, you have wrap, and then you have clip.
Yeah, some of the underlines are a little creepy, but it looks great. So, but it left this text box floating around at the top with all kinds of garbage in it.
That could be like a comment that may be converted weird. If there was a comment, posted on one of the cells, I'm not sure.
I don't know. It was just a plain old Excel file.
Okay.
Anyway,
I mean, if
but
you want,
yeah,
I can
I'm
take a
real
look at
happy.
it.
I'm real happy. So I've already, while we were talking, already set up the budget folder and shared it with the treasurers, and so anyway, make it work. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So I was asked about inventory, so I said, why not? Let's see how complicated we can get with this, right? So let's go over to the inventory account that I created. So of course I created balance shout. I'm commingling my words. A balance sheet account is a balance shout, just in case you need like a translation from my language to yours. A balance shout. I like that actually. So I assumed the purchase of $50,000, and this is how complicated we got it. It was funny. I said to her, challenge me. I said, make this as complex. Let's see if I can do it. So she says, all right, let's say my client buys $50,000 worth of inventory in September. I said, okay, that part's easy. So we build in an inventory purchase in the month of September. And she says, but They don't pay for it in September. They're going to put it on their credit card, right? So I say, okay, let's break this down one piece at a time. So I have the balance sheet account that assumes a purchase of $50,000 of inventory in September, but we're getting billed for it. We don't pay for that yet. So let's go over to accounts payable. And in accounts payable, I have a line item for inventory purchases. So there's your $50,000 offset, right? So it didn't get paid, it didn't come out of the bank account, so I have an increase to the inventory account asset and an increase to a liability for the inventory purchases in accounts payable of $50,000. So those two wash each other out cash flow-wise, right? I didn't pay for anything yet. Then she says, but then it gets even better. So then in the next month, or in the month that it's due, I'm going to put it on my credit card. I said, okay. So let's put a credit card account on the balance sheet. New charges. In the following month, in October, $50,000, but notice this is drawing from inventory because now we're making assumptions, right? And you have to make assumptions when you're doing a projection like this. So we're making the assumption that in the month following the month the inventory was purchased, we're going to put it on the credit card. So there's your $50,000, right? So let's go back to the so now let's go back to accounts payable. So accounts payable, we're showing this. We're subtracting out. We're saying accounts payable gets paid off. Whatever was there in the previous month gets paid off this month, right? So this is actually taking this total here and flowing it over here. What's my description? Decreases or payments. This is the accounts payable account, right? So again, we're building in an assumption here that says every month we're going to pay off last month's accounts payables in full. That's the assumption. Now you can make it even more complex and say we only pay half this month and half in the following month. Then it's just a matter of writing in the formulas and creating an assumptions table somewhere so that you can outline these assumptions so that somebody else looking at it understands the assumptions you're making. I'm trying to keep it somewhat simple because the purpose here is not to make it overly complicated, but the purpose here is to understand how we can build these things in and flow them properly so that the statement of cash flows balances so that we can look at this with our clients and say 6 months, 12 months, 2 years out. I rarely ever like to go more than 2 years because you're just going too far into the future to even begin to be able to predict what's going to happen, right? The most I really like to go out is a year, but I do 2 years for good measure and just to have that sort of buffer in there so that as time moves forward and we approach that point, we have it already in place. But the point I'm getting at is it's not that hard to flow this stuff. And the course walks you through how to set all this stuff up, you know, at the basic level, and then you just have to build into that. So you have to think through, okay, so she said we purchase it in September, then but it doesn't get paid for then, so we throw it into accounts payable as the offset in September. Then in the following month it's going to get paid off, but we're going to pick that back up on the credit card account, right? So we go over here to the credit card account, and the credit card account pulls from the inventory and says, okay, whatever we bought in inventory last month is going to get thrown on the credit card this month, right? So all of this is flowing through different liability accounts, right? It starts off, we buy the inventory, it goes into accounts payable. The next month it comes out of accounts payable, it goes into the credit card payable. Then in the following month, it's assumed that we pay off the credit card. Now the $25,000 you see here is the subsequent month's inventory purchase that I built in because I wanted to show her what it looks like as we continue this. But you'll see that the $50,000 is no longer in here. This is a new purchase, so the assumption is that the $50,000 got paid off. What's really happened is the net difference, or $35,000, is what what we end up with here, which is the payments. Right, and here I just hard-coded it, and I said, let's say we pay off $35,000 against the $50,000. So assuming we don't pay off the whole credit card balance. The bottom line is, now let's see how this all flows over to the statement of cash flows. The statement of cash flows is where all roads lead to at the end of the day. So here it is. There's our $53,125 in accounts payable. Our $50,000 inventory purchase coming out of inventory, but it went into here. It's included in that $53,125, right? So it's all here. Then in the following month, where's my credit card account? It's at the bottom. In the following month, we take that $50,000 of inventory purchases and we put it on here. Right, so these are all non-cash things that get accounted for in the statement of cash flows to make sure that it balances. So at the end of the day, and what the course teaches you is how to set this up, and it teaches you how to understand how all this works so that in the statement of cash flows, you're not looking at balances of accounts, you're looking at changes to balances in balance sheet accounts to help reconcile from net income to cash. And that way, once this is balanced and done properly, you have the balance check at the bottom, so that going out into the future, I can say, hey, client, at the end of December 2015, or I can add the next 12 months in now with a simple copy and paste, and then updating my schedules accordingly to make sure I've got all the projected information in there. And I can say, hey, client, I believe we've been conservative with these projections, and based on that, here's what we project your ending cash balance is going to be. Here's how much money you'll have in the bank at the end of 2016. And what this tells us is, and I'll give you just some examples, what this tells us is, yes, you'll have enough money if you need to buy that equipment you want to buy in 6 months. And if not, then maybe we need to go over to our line of credit, which I've also built in here, and maybe we need to plan on borrowing money against our line of credit. So notice I've got on the line of credit a principal row here that's cleared. So maybe in October of 2015, I already built in the assumed borrowing to start with of $100,000. And again, this all flows, so everything balances. And if you look at the statement of cash flows now, what this says is, there's my $100,000. So I'm adding $100,000 to cash based on something that's not included in income. When I borrowed the money from the bank from that line of credit, it's not income. It's borrowed, so it's an increase to net income to arrive at the cash that we have in the bank at the end of the month. That's how we're able to sustain a loss and still have cash in the bank, is we borrow it. Either that or somebody has to invest it, one way or the other. And that's why you have operating, financing, and investing activities. Again, keeping this simple, I don't have the investing activities section in here. But if somebody would have invested in the business instead of us borrowing the $100,000, then you'd see the investing activities section, and it works the same way. So once you have this, you have a powerful tool to say, can we afford to buy this equipment? Should we finance this? Can we pay off our debt? And now let's go look at the not the line of credit. Was it the line of credit? It was the line of credit, actually. I skipped this over on purpose because this is one where I was talking about the different kinds of templates. We have the income statement account and the balance sheet account. This is a little different kind of schedule, and I purposely wanted to make sure this was included because this is a perfect example, another example of something that in one schedule impacts both the balance sheet and the profit and loss. Because here's what happens, and I'll go back out to the end where it started. So in September, we borrow $100,000. The presumed rate is 4.5% annually, right? So, and then we can figure in additional borrowing if we need to. But so it's pretty simple interest calculation here, but it's basically taking the APR, dividing it by 12, and applying that to whatever the balance was to come up with, in this case, the $375 of interest that we're charging. Or that we're expecting to incur, I should say, not that we're charging. So now what happens from this schedule is, and I should have frozen the row so it's clear to see where the titles are, but the ending principal here is what's going to flow to the balance sheet. So look at the balance sheet, and these are simple formulas, just equals this. So let's go to the balance sheet, and here's our liabilities, and here's our line of credit and our credit card payable. Right, so it's all in here. There's the $100,000 we borrowed. In October, we pay off $2,000 of the principal. Let's go back to the line of credit and see if that looks accurate. Yeah, so we have $375 in interest. We assume, and the way I set this up was I want to assume what the principal payment is so that it adds the interest to the principal payment for the total payment, right? But then that way, this just subtracts the principal payment to arrive at what flows to the balance sheet. The $375 is going to flow to the profit and loss in the form of interest expense. Let's see if I'm right about that. Here's my interest expense, and there's my $375. And if you look at the formula, you'll notice it's equal to the tab called LOC for line of credit, cell M9, right? That's exactly where the October interest expense is coming from. So it happens to be right next door. Let's click over. Sure enough, M9 is your $375. That's how all this comes together. So here's an example of a schedule where, and the beauty of this is I can say, hey, you know what? If I look at the statement of cash flows and I see that I have enough money to pay this down more aggressively, now I can plan on doing that, and it's going to schedule the projected cash outflow for me on the statement of cash flows. So if I come into November and say, okay, let's pay off $50,000 of this, And that's obviously good because the more aggressively I can pay off something like this, the less interest I'll pay in the long run. But I've played around with scenarios where it's gotten real interesting, where I said if I pay it off too aggressively, it's too much of a drain on my cash flow. Even though it costs me less in interest over time, it costs me more elsewhere because of the fact that I'm losing that cash. I'm not holding on to that capital. So when I put a $50,000 payment in here, let's go over the statement of cash flows and see what that does. All right, so you can kind of see here, line of credit payable gets reduced by $50,000, right? It's a $50,000 cash outflow that's not included in net income. But here's the problem, of course, is it puts me in the hole $85,000 in cash or net cash flow, which leaves me with ending cash of only $8,000. And then in the following month, I'm negative $33,000. So I can do something like this and very quickly see, oh, that's not going to work. Let's go back to the line of credit. Let's go back to 2000. So once this is all put together, and I don't think I've ever shown you guys what it looks like at this stage, but once it's all put together, what you can hopefully see now is what a powerful cash flow management tool this creates for you that you can use first and foremost in your own business, and then secondly for your clients. And this is such a powerful value-added service that you can and should be thinking of offering to your clients. Dennis says you might want to check out the various add-ons for Google Sheets. He's right. There are a lot of add-ons to Google Sheets too that you can play around with. That could be a whole nother hangout. But it's 9 o'clock. Our hour is basically up. So unmute. I'm going to check for questions in the group, and I'd love to hear what you all have to say. And now, having seen what I've just shown you.
Well, actually, Larry says this is Seth's speed training. Like, you know how you do speed reading? This is speed training by Seth.
Sorry.
Connie says, oh my God, how many words per minute is this?
This Southern gal can't do that, Seth.
Sorry.
Can you slow down the speech on the Google, on the YouTube?
I'm going to rewatch this again.
Can you slow down
I had a lot to cover in a short time, but of course in the course I do go through it much more slowly. I had an hour to cover here what's covered in like several hours of video on the course. So
I think some of the Northerners are like, what's wrong? Sounds fine to me.
Can you slow down the audio on the Google, on the YouTube replays?
No, you just have to keep your mouse over that pause button. Just keep it right over that pause button and
That's
tap
what I
it
do.
frequently.
I do in course study. That's exactly what I do.
Yep. I do that myself when I'm watching somebody else's video. I hit the pause button off and I watch something. I say, okay, I think I get that. I pause it. I go try it, and then I resume and do the next thing. And oftentimes what starts to happen is as I'm starting to get it, I start getting ahead of the video because I'm like, oh, I get this, and I just go. And then I play the video.
Seth, I love watching you on a roll, and you were really on a roll today. You nailed it.
Well, thank you. I hope it wasn't overwhelming, but I just, like I said, I wanted to get through a lot in a short period of time.
That teaches us in the future not to stall him in the beginning. Let him get going earlier.
Well, you know what? We can look at this again next week, and I'll go through it more slowly. How does that sound?
No, I like the fast.
I'd like to see more of how Google Sheets is designed and works. Like, I was playing while you were talking because I was overwhelmed. So, you know, for example, I was sharing a Google, it could be a Google Sheet or anything, and I didn't set up the share properly as far as anybody who has a link. So a couple people said they put in for approval, but I can't find it anywhere. So.
You should get that in your email, Sarah.
It went to my email?
The request for approval.
Yeah, the request for approval will go to your email.
Yeah. Like when I'm logged into the Google Drive.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so next week we'll get into more. So today I showed you the end result of what can be done with Google Sheets. Next week we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty details, and we'll go nice and slow. I mean, the quick answer is the formulas are written the exact same way they're written in Excel. But I'll walk through some of this stuff more slowly. Maybe we'll start with a blank sheet, and I'll just create some stuff nice and slow with you so you can see exactly how it works to design something in Google Sheets. That'll be part 2. So this will be a course in Google Sheets part 2. But again, I promise you I go through it nice and slow in School of Bookkeeping, in the actual course. So we've got the course on Google Sheets itself. And then this course 21, that whole first section, in several different stages, walks you through how to create all this. I start you with a very basic template, but none of the balance sheet or the profit or the see, I did it again. Not the balance sheet, nor the income statement, nor the statement of cash flows are even set up. In the course, all those start from completely blank spreadsheets, and I walk you through how to build them from the ground up. And I walk you through how to create the 2 account template types. I walk you through how to set up the line of credit. All that is taught in the course, actually. So those of you who are already enrolled, Dennis, I know you are.
What course is it again? Someone had asked that. What course number is this again?
It's course 21, and it's called Accounting and Bookkeeping Cloud Practice Management, How to Start and Grow Your Practice and Run It from Anywhere.
Seth, would it make sense to, you know how you did the course with the Excel for the cash flow statement? Would it make sense to upload that and try it out, or just start fresh?
No, you could. You mean the template that you got with that course? Yeah, you could upload that and tweak it. I think honestly, you'll probably learn more by starting with a blank and kind of doing it over again, because then it forces you to rebalance it and rethink through, how all of it comes together.
Cool, I'll do that.
But I would say do both. Also, upload that template and play with it.
Just to see how it loads. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll probably lose some of the formatting. Excel is still better about some of the formatting options, but that's really the only major difference. And then there's little things like in the filters. If you use data filters in Excel, it has a powerful search feature within the filter that Google Sheets doesn't have yet. And for all I know, they've added it by now, and I haven't checked. But it's little things like that. There are still some subtle little things that Excel does better, but by and large, you can function so nicely in Google Sheets by itself with everything that it does. And as Dennis mentioned, there's add-ons you can look at, and it even does pivot tables, which the Google Sheets course, the course on Google Sheets that I have, actually teaches you. Because remember, that course is built on the premise of actually tracking your accounting information in Google Sheets. And at the end of that course, there's actually lessons on pivot tables, which is essentially how you create reports on that information. So I strongly encourage people to go through that course as well as this one. And then I just this week started rolling out section 2 of course 21, which gets into marketing and branding and how to get new clients. So we get away from the Google Sheets and modeling stuff and more into, now that I've got the foundation built and I've projected how many clients I'm going to get, let's work on how to actually get those clients. So it was the next logical thing to start going out there and showing you all.
Cool.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Gina, what are we talking about today at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern on your Hangout?
It's Labor Day weekend. Whatever we talk about is what we talk about.
So we're going into labor. We're going into labor at Gina's Hangout.
Absolutely. We might meet Clyde, too. Sarah?
Oh, yeah. I'm hoping, I hope to be back here in the office, and I'll show him. Clyde, come here. Buddy, come here.
That's what that was. I saw out of the corner of my eye that you were doing something over there. Hi, Clyde.
Say hi. Oh, he's kind of looking away.
The afternoon hangout is pets, alcohol probably, and then we sprinkle in accounting and software. So it's a lot more laid back.
How come we don't see you in the afternoon, Seth?
Because usually I'm out. Because Friday afternoons I actually meet with my bookkeeping manager and we go through all our bookkeeping clients.
Oh, he's working.
That's what Clyde thinks.
Don't bark. You'll wake up my dog.
And don't forget, in less than 2 hours, we have Apatosaurus Rex, our first review, which is going to be on Google Keep. So go sign up right now.
Okay. Gotta add that.
And I got to go get on the phone with Stacy so we can do a little last-minute planning on this. So I will see you all later on.
Let's go make some money, people.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye. Have a nice Labor Day.
Bye.